And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Bear with us as our camera's having a little bit of difficulties at the moment. But we are still here with you guys, keeping you guys updated from MLB's winter meetings. Quite a bit of activity happened yesterday. Max Fried goes to the New York Yankees. 8 years, $218 million. Texas Rangers make a couple of additions, bringing in Nathaniel Lowe, returning him to the Texas Rangers starting rotation. 3 years, $75 million. They also acquire late in the evening Jake Berger. Thank you guys for joining us so late last night for that one. Had a lot of fun with you guys on that live. In fact, it was one of our best lives we've done during our winter meetings coverage. Seems like you guys like these out-of-nowhere trades. Who would have thunk? That's what I enjoy about the winter meetings as well. I enjoy the absolute out-of-nowhere type things like we saw with the Blue Jays bringing in Jimenez. Got some updates on that as well. We'll dig at all of that and more here at the Upside. Alrighty, so the first move I want to discuss here is what's going to happen next with the New York Yankees. They have to address their outfield rotation right now. They have to bring in a corner outfield bat. The heavy favorite coming into this offseason for Teoscar Hernandez was the Los Angeles Dodgers. Seems like they have already brought in Michael Conforto, but they are not done adding. They're still looking for a right-handed hitting corner outfielder. Hernandez still fits that, but it's not necessarily as huge of a priority as it was entering this offseason. So they're not necessarily going to break the bank for him because they don't necessarily have to do so. Now, I still think they're considered the favorite for him because he fits so well on that roster, had such a great year with the Dodgers. I think he's still their preferred target, but it's not necessarily a fait accompli that it's going to happen. There are a few other contenders for him. The Yankees are said to be in the mix along with the Red Sox. Orioles have already filled their need out there with Tyler O'Neill, but the Blue Jays could also use a corner outfield bat. Now, most of those teams are in the Northeast. I'm sure there's a few other teams looking for some, for some offensive additions here in the winter meetings. It is the final day of the winter meeting, so expect a busy, active morning here at the Upside. So we're going to be posting updates for you guys as quickly as we can possibly get them out there for you guys. I'm expecting a flurry of activity. The Rule 5 draft is about 1 o'clock this afternoon. That should kind of key the rest of the market anyway. as far as what we're going to see with Crochet, as far as a trade possibility there. I think there's a possibility Bellinger gets moved here in the next few hours. Those are kind of the two trade candidates I'm looking at. As far as free agents that could sign in the next few hours, I'm looking at first baseman Christian Walker. I'm expecting probably in the neighborhood of a 20-ish, $25 million range for Walker. I think he's going to get paid a little bit less than Pete Alonso, but I wouldn't be surprised which direction they go depending on how his free agency goes. I mean, you're looking at the New York Yankees. They spent on the starting rotation. They are not done adding to that roster. They need 2 impact bats to take away from the loss of Juan Soto. I think they will get it. It sounds like they're looking to go a little bit more defensive. The move for Jake Berger from the Texas Rangers last night might actually help out the New York Yankees. We'll dig into why here in just a moment. But the Red Sox also need to look for some starting pitching here today or in the next couple of days. Reason being is there are only really like 5 legitimate starters out there that could make a difference on a starting staff. Somebody you could plug in at the number 1 or 2 spot in that rotation, maybe a number 3 in a rotation, but there's very few options left on the free agent market. Now the trade market, there's been some discussion about Dylan Cease being made available by the San Diego Padres. Framber Valdez, for whatever you believe he's worth on the market right now, or how out there he really is from the Houston Astros. Remember, Houston's still trying to compete this year. They've said they're willing to listen on literally everything right now as they try to bring back Alex Bregman. I still would be absolutely floored if they brought him back based solely on how they've negotiated contracts in the past. They don't really like to go past 5 years. It's very rare when they do. They don't like to spend top free agent dollar on their own players, let alone outside talent. It's very unusual for them to be willing to go to, say, 7 years, $200 million for an Alex Bregman. It would be an absolute shock if they did it, and would be against what they've done as an organization and what their owner has really been willing to do for the past 5 years. They've let guys like Garrett Cole go, Carlos Correa, George Springer, Justin Verlander even left and now was traded back after the Mets ate a significant portion of his salary. But I still would be shocked if they found enough money to, 1, get it done, and 2, if they had the organizational cojones to be able to get that kind of contract sealed. So, I still think they're on the outside of that negotiation for Bregman. I think they're trying to say all the right things for the Houston Astros fan base, but for my money, I'm not buying any of it. I think there's some real competition, though, for Kyle Tucker. I think a trade for Tucker could be in the offing before we get to Christmas. I think it's too early in the process to say there's a favorite in there, but the Phillies have certainly kicked the tires on it since his name really became out there over the last couple of days. So that's one team to keep an eye out for in the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. The Chicago Cubs could be another one. Cubs are looking to offload Bellinger, looking to upgrade their offense and their pitching staff. Moving Bellinger, freeing up a little bit of money, could allow them to go after Tucker and then in free agency address their starting staff. That's another team I'm looking out for in the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. The team that won the Juan Soto sweepstakes, however, is doing just fine. You look at the New York Mets anyway. Juan Soto, 15 years, $765 million. They are not done this free agency period. They're going to add a starting pitcher. They're going to add a bullpen guy. They're going to bring back Pete Alonso. And then they might still add a corner infielder like a Carlos Correa. The reason being is Carlos Correa had a lot of interest there with the Mets, obviously negotiated a deal before it fell through because of the red flags due to his long-term medicals. If the Twins are willing to eat up some of the contract that they weren't willing to take on because of those red flags, I think we could see Carlos Correa on opening day in a New York Mets uniform. I would not count that out as a legitimate possibility. I think there's some prospects that are on the lower level side for the Mets. They wouldn't have to deal their top couple of guys. Maybe even some guys who have major league experience might be more preferable than that upper echelon level of their Mets farm system. But I think there is a trade to be made between the two clubs. Twins are looking to save a little bit of money. I think this trade is going to take some time, though. I think this is the last hurrah before you get to the start of the regular season if they're going to move him. Because there's not a whole lot of teams that really fit for Correa. A lot of teams already have their answer with their middle infield options right now. There's not a whole lot of flexibility there. He could be flexed over to the third base, which is why the Mets, I think, would be a good fit there because they've already discussed it with Carlos Correa and are comfortable with the player himself. Now, the medicals, they already have more information than any other team as far as what the medicals look like for Correa. That's why they decided not to go with a long-term deal with Correa at the time. But if the Twins are willing to eat, say, 20 to 40 million of that deal, maybe the Mets take a risk on it and say, hey, We've already spent the money on Soto. We're going to spend it on Alonso. We're going to add another starting pitcher. We have a couple of really good options in our bullpen. We're going to add more. Then the finishing piece to that team could be Carlos Correa. If they were to do that, say they get a guy like a Walker Buehler or Sean Manaea, somebody in that range of starting pitcher to fill out that rotation. They add another eighth inning setup guy, a Robertson, whoever else you might think fits in there. You bring back Pete Alonso, and then you finish off your offseason by bringing in Carlos Correa. That's a team that I believe could give the Dodgers a real run for their money to win the National League pennant. Right now, I still think the Dodgers are the heavy favorite. I think they're also considered to be the favorite for Roki Sasaki. We'll dig in on his market in just a second here. But if the Mets were able to swing a move like that after getting all these other dominoes to fall their way, they could be one of those top echelon teams, even better than what we already view them as after bringing in Juan Soto. So that's kind of one domino I'm looking at over the next month or two. Now, as far as Roki Sasaki, for those of you wondering if your team has a legitimate chance to sign him, this might be music to your ears. According to media reports, what Sasaki has been telling the Japanese media when he was over there is that he didn't exactly enjoy the media attention that he got while he was over there in Japan. Suffice to say, teams like markets like New York, Los Angeles are going to have even more media pressure. You're going to have international interest in addition to the Japanese market that he had that's going to be coming over as well to cover his career. That's going to be incredible pressure on a player that already is not comfortable with the media internationally. So I'm not saying that's going to rule out the Dodgers or those big market teams. I am going to say that it is a major factor in his free agency. It's going to be something he's going to have to consider if he does go to the Dodgers. Dodgers are going to be followed unlike any team we've ever seen in Major League Baseball history. They are going to be considered the quote-unquote Miami Heat, the Heatles back when LeBron, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh went there. Now you look at the LA Dodgers, you're going to have Ohtani, Yamamoto, and possibly Sasaki on the team as far as international talent. You're going to have the World Series MVP in Freddie Freeman. You're going to have Mookie Betts in there. You're going to have Glasnow, Snell as well. This is a loaded roster right now, and they are going to be covered like it. So they are the big bad team. They are the new evil empire of Major League Baseball. So are the LA Dodgers where he wants to play? Could be a yes, could be a no. It all depends on how he feels about the other offers. The other teams in the mix, I think, have a real chance now, given this new reporting about Roki Sasaki. I'm still going to say the Dodgers are the favorite, but I'm going to say the chances have never looked brighter for teams like the Padres, the Rangers, the Mariners, Giants, Cubs, and even to some extent the Mets and Yankees. I think all of those teams have to look at this, free agency chase and say, hey, we have a chance. Now, I saw a few Guardians fans even posting about their ability to be able to recruit Roki Sasaki. They don't really have a track record of success with international free agents. I don't necessarily see that as a legitimate option, but you never know. The Guardians are going all out this year. They're trying to win the series. They made the great trade of bringing in Horowitz and then flipping him to the Pirates for a bevy of players. I really like what the Guardians have done over the last couple of days. But for the Roki Sasaki sweepstakes, I think the teams like the Padres, Rangers, Giants, Mariners all have significantly higher chances than they did 24 hours ago. So we'll see where he goes. He's going to probably have the biggest impact overall of any of the free agents left on the board as far as long-term success of an organization. He's going to cost next to nothing for you for the next 6 years. He's going to be a number 1 or 2 on your staff starting out, and then he's probably going to be your ace next year. He's going to be a great starting pitcher. He looks the part. The question is, can he handle everything else? Is the pressure going to be too much for him? Those are big question marks for him coming over, especially when you consider this article, this news article anyway, came out months and months and months after we all knew he was coming over. This was this winter of Roki Sasaki. He was the top international free agent, and for this to just be coming out now is a little bit surprising that teams weren't necessarily picking up on this, that other markets, other news organizations weren't picking up on this pressure that was starting to build up for Sasaki's side. So for me, this is only good news for those other teams in the running. We'll see where he ultimately ends up. One other thing I wanted to get to before we kind of wrap up the morning show here is where the rest of the market is going to go. I want to check in on the Texas Rangers after they were the most active team yesterday, making a trade, bringing in Jake Berger, right-handed hitting corner infield DH guy. Reason why this is important is because it's going to impact the market for Christian Walker in free agency. It's also going to put Nathaniel Lowe on the trade block. I think his name was already being bandied about before this. We mentioned it a few times as far as a possibility that the Rangers already had some middle infield prospects that could cover first base for him. Now with the addition of Jake Burger, they have the right-handed hitting complement to Nathaniel Lowe already in-house. The up and down streakiness of Nathaniel Lowe has been a point of contention in that Rangers front office. And as much as Nathaniel Lowe is such a great teammate and absolute fantastic person to listen to when he's interviewed, if you want to check out some of the Rangers podcasts anyway, when he was interviewed, I mean, he was interviewed for I think an hour on one of those podcasts. Absolutely incredible interview. Just the personability of that guy, humility in his character. He's going to be a great teammate wherever he goes if he's traded, and so he's going to have a market. The offense is there, but it is streaky at times, and I think the Rangers are looking to save a little bit of money here, which is why he's available. The reason why he might be preferable to a Christian Walker is because he's a little bit younger, and you're getting him at a cheaper cost. He's arbitration eligible. You're going to have him under control for one more year after this as well. He's going to get around $10 or $11 million in arbitration this year. So as far as Nathaniel Lowe goes, I think say the Yankees are looking to bring in Bregman, they're going to spend big money on Fried and possibly Bregman, possibly a corner outfielder. A trade for Nathaniel Lowe could really help them out if they're trying to save a little bit of money. Remember the Fried contract? All you guys were arguing, oh, it's so long. It's too many years for a starting pitcher. Why did they give him 8 years? It was to lower the average annual value and tax burden on the Yankees. They're trying to do more this offseason than just Max Fried. They could have given him 6 years for $160 million, but instead they decided to tack on a few extra years and kind of lengthen out that deal a little bit to lower that AAV. And so, that's how they chose to do it, by tacking on a few extra years at the end. I think a trade for Nathaniel Lowe would accomplish the same goal of improving their defense at first base, improving their offense at first base, and then still allowing them to spend money on a Bregman or a Santander or a Hernandez. Those are all options for the New York Yankees. Now, it's not just New York Yankees or bust that are in the market for a first baseman. Houston is looking for a first baseman. Christian Walker is their top target. Mets are still looking to bring back Pete Alonso until they get it done. You never know what they might ultimately choose to do. The Chicago Cubs are looking to offload Cody Bellinger. Wouldn't be a surprise to see him go to the Yankees or to the Mariners. Both of those teams are in the market for the first baseman as well. So, offense is in demand in Major League Baseball right now. The Pittsburgh Pirates could use a guy like Nathaniel Lowe, low-cost guy who could come in there and make a difference at their first base spot. They just bring in Horowitz, so that would be another good boon for their offense. Besides the fact that the two teams, the Pirates and the Texas Rangers, match up really well when it comes to a trade. I showed you guys the trade anyway that I came up with for the Yankees, but there's even more trade possibilities between the Rangers and Pirates. Pirates did a great job bringing in Horowitz. If they put him at second base or move him to a corner outfield spot, he'd be a great offensive weapon for them. And then put Lowe at first base, they could really have something going, especially with the pitching that they have. They have tons of minor league pitching to deal with or to deal from that the Rangers could utilize, put in their upper levels of their minor league system, and see if they can get something to work. Besides the fact that they have Bednar back there as well, who they've long been connected to as a closer option. And by the way, the Rangers are looking for a closer still. So there's another piece that could work as far as a trade between the two clubs. So those are two teams I'm keeping an eye on as far as a Nathaniel Lowe trade. Let us know in the comment section what you think about the possibility of Lowe getting moved, where you think he could go, what the next moves are going to be here over the next couple of hours. Welcome in, Jonathan. Good morning. I could see the possibility that Sasaki ends up with the Padres or Giants. Reason being is that it isn't a big market like Los Angeles, but still West Coast. That's kind of my thoughts as well there. I think the Giants are looking primarily at Corbin Burns, but even if they brought in Burns, I don't think they're out on Sasaki. I think every team is going to be able to afford Sasaki. It's going to be an international pool money free agent contract. $5.1 million is what it's going to ultimately cost them. And so it's just a matter of convincing him that that you have the right team set up for him to succeed. So Padres, Giants, Rangers, Mariners, I think are the top 4 teams outside of the Dodgers for him with the Cubs and others on the periphery of that conversation. But appreciate you guys joining us this morning. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining us once again. We'll be covering the MLB winter meetings. This is the final day of the winter meetings. Hopefully we have an active day of trades and signings today, but let's go ahead and head over to the screen here. Let me pull this up. Pull up our list here that I've built for you guys for baseball coverage. Angels are in the market for an outfielder. There was some surprise anyway when Nolan Arenado announced his list of teams that he'd be willing to accept a trade to. One of those teams was the LA Angels. I wonder if he just wants to be in LA. He, of course, has the pennant race guys that are going to be there. The Dodgers, the Padres are in that conversation as well. Teams in the Northeast are in that conversation. Red Sox as well. But there are 6 teams in the market for Nolan Arenado, or at least on his list that he would be willing to accept a trade to. Angels are looking for a little bit more offense, though, this offseason. John, are the Yankees getting Tucker? I haven't seen any headlines to say that the Yankees are getting him, but I would say that they are looking for all upgrades. They are looking for a corner outfield bat. He would be a significant upgrade. He would be better than Santander or Hernandez in this market. He's going to get a significant deal. I think he would be a great get in free agency next year. I would try to save my powder for him. So, for instance, my preferred route this offseason, if I'm a Yankees GM, I bring in Fried, I bring in Bregman, I solve my long-term spot at third base. I go for a trade of Nathaniel Lowe to save a little bit of money. Maybe go a little bit cheaper for an outfield addition, get a little bit better defensively. Maybe include Leody Taveras in that deal. I go after a cheaper corner outfield guy, say like a Max Kepler on a 1-year deal. And then as far as a next offseason, I go all out for Kyle Tucker because I think he'd be a perfect fit and a complement to Aaron Judge. Why don't I do it this year? Because I would have to give up prospects to do it. That's why I would try to hold on to those guys. Sure, you're going to have to give up prospects for Nathaniel Lowe, but it's going to be nothing compared to the cost of bringing in Kyle Tucker. Astros are going to want a bevy of pieces for him. Willard, welcome back. I'm laughing on the inside that Yankee GM Cashman, who hates the Astros, but yet if the Astros play their cards right, could sign Tucker onto a monster contract and trade Tucker and Framber and Presley. I get your argument there. The Yankees have had a bit of a competition over the last 6-7 years with the New York Yankees. But the Astros have got their World Series. The Yankees need to get there. They're looking at players who have playoff pedigree, and the Astros guys do have playoff pedigree. They've had success there in Houston, but it seems like the end of the road here for Houston this year or next. I think this year's probably the last chance they have at being anywhere close to a World Series contender, unless they are able to retain Bregman, retain Valdez, retain Tucker. They lose those guys. I'm not sure how they replace those guys in that organization. They could go out there and surprise us, go after a Christian Walker, but I think that's only a temporary measure, even if they brought him in this offseason. My bigger question for them is, what does their rotation look like in 2 years? What does their outfield look like in 2 years? Because right now, it looks really devoid of talent. They're going to have to get creative in how they rebuild this organization as far as the pieces that are going into free agency and in their minor league system. Are they going to have some development among that group there? Dominguez, Jones, and Heel, no, and no. That's not going to cost that much, Willard. Tucker is going to cost a pretty penny as far as a trade, but it's not going to cost one of those guys. You're not trading, the entire 6 years of Dominguez or Jones for 1 year of Tucker. That's not going to happen. You're going to be expecting probably in the top 15 range of prospects. And remember, the Yankees like to go more quantity over quality that they'll give you. Remember the trade for Joey Gallo? They gave up 4 guys in their top 30, but 3 of them were in their 15 to 20 range, and then 1 guy was right at 30, I believe. That's the type of trade I would expect here for a Kyle Tucker. I would at the time when Joey Gallo was traded, he was viewed very similarly as far as value on the market. Tucker, I think, has a little bit more value at this time right now than what a Joey Gallo did. I'm not saying that they're the same player. I'm not saying that they're same impact on the field. But I am saying when a trade is being considered here, they're going to be valued very similarly because they only had 1 year left. Gallo obviously didn't work out for the Yankees. I think Tucker's a very different player and is going to command a little bit more in return, but nowhere near Dominguez or Jones or Heel or anything like that. But maybe a top 10 guy, a couple of top 20 guys, and round it out with another top 30 guy is within the range of possibilities here in a Kyle Tucker trade. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. We'll go ahead and update our page one more time. Marino says, I've not gotten the sense that Crochet and the Mets match up as well as other clubs as of Wednesday morning. Abundance of competition there. I think a Mania return is a lot more probable with perhaps Buehler as a fallback. These things change as trade talks are fluid, as we all know. Simply reporting that as of right now, my perception is other teams have matched up better for Crochet. Not a surprise there. Kind of expected that one. Mets I don't see as going the trade route to acquire their starting pitcher. I always thought they would go more free agency. Burns kind of at the top of the market. Unlikely for them because they don't really go that length of contract for a starting pitcher. Manaea makes some sense because he had a great season last year for them. Bueller, low-cost contract, high upside guy. I think would be another great fit there. But Manaea, I think, is probably the most likely of those guys, just like Marino says here. Rule 5 draft is today. I want to get into one last thing over here is that the Nolan Arenado talks here. He's willing to accept a trade to 6 teams. At least that's the reporting right now. Those 6 teams include the Angels. That's the surprise. The Dodgers, the Padres, the Phillies, the Mets, and the Red Sox. Notice how the Yankees are not in there. I wonder if there's some possibility that he'd be willing to go there. I would not be surprised. We heard some reporting out there yesterday that he was willing to accept a deal to the Yankees as well. But at least the teams he already has let the Cardinals know he'd be comfortable with are those 6 teams. Angels are the team that don't make sense to really trade for him. Dodgers make a lot of sense, but they say they are not interested in going after him. Padres, that would make a little bit of sense to me, but they'd have to make other moves in that infield. That would be a move that would say that they're not getting back Jurickson Profar, who I think would be a much better fit for them right now. Phillies, unless they move Bohm, I don't see a spot for him as currently constructed. Mets could use a corner infielder like a Nolan Arenado at third base if they don't go after Carlos Correa. And then the Red Sox, of course, need a bat in that lineup. He would probably take over third with Devers moving over to first base. That's kind of where the market is right now. Checking in one last time on X, and then we'll probably log it off here, and then we'll be back at about 1 o'clock, keeping you guys updated. Shane Smith is going to be the number 1 pick in the Rule 5 draft, according to Jonathan Mayo, here in a couple of hours, going to the White Sox. So that's something to keep an eye out for, is these Rule 5 guys. It's going to take up an active roster spot in addition to a 40-man. So you got to have space on that, and you got to be willing to carry him for the entire length of your season. So the White Sox can do something like this with a guy who's never been above Double-A. He's pitched very well below 3 ERA, pitched well at the Arizona Fall League, and he could be a nice get there for the White Sox. Is he going to be overwhelmed at the major league level? Remains to be seen. That's the issue with Rule 5 type of picks, is that you have to keep him on the active roster. You can't exactly demote him and then say, we'll just try to bring him up when he's back more confident. You can't do that. If you try to option him, you have to give the option back to his former team to be able to bring him back in. And usually the other team will be like, hey, a free player, thank you very much. We'll take him right back. So you got to be careful with how you use your Rule 5 guys. You spend a little bit of money to be able to bring them in as well, but you got to keep a roster spot for them all season long. So for those of you seeing these minor league guys going, hey, they'd be great on a major league roster in a year or two, yeah, they may very well be, but you got to be comfortable with them at the major league roster right now, filling some type of a role for you, even if it's just as the mop-up duty guy out of the bullpen on days that aren't so good. Yeah, he does have greater experience, yes. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and log off here. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll kind of keep you guys updated. One other bit of news anyway from yesterday is that the Texas Rangers, they brought in Jake Burger. I had mentioned how at the time that the trade just seemed a little bit lopsided in the Rangers' favor because of how cheap the deal was. It's pending how that Mendoza guy is going to be valued for the Marlins going forward. Another trade, according to baseballtradevalues.com, that was a little bit lopsided was the Jimenez deal. Absolute overpay, or underpay anyway, for the Cleveland Guardians. I mean, the impetus was for that the Blue Jays were getting the better player. But he has so much negative value tied to him because of that deal that it was a clear win here for the Guardians. And not only did they get Horowitz out of it, they then flip him to bring in 3 more pieces into that organization. Just wanted to touch one more time on how trades are happening right now that are out of nowhere, that sometimes are a little bit more lopsided than what we've seen in recent memory. A little bit surprising, the deals we saw yesterday. Hopefully we get some more out of nowhere deals. That's where I'm hoping the market is at today with some trades. Hopefully we get a Burns deal, Crochet trade. Those are some things I'm looking for in the next few hours. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll be live with you guys again at 1 o'clock. And make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you at 1.